So as I've been suggesting, when all is said and done, meditation is really about awareness, its qualities and stability, and its reliability. It's about bare attention, discernment, clear seeing, and thus wisdom, where wisdom means knowing the actuality of things rather than being caught in your own misperceptions, misapprehensions. And those, for all of us, are really legion, because it's so easy to be caught up in our own belief systems, ideas and opinions and prejudices that kind of form a veil or a cloud that prevent us from actually seeing what's right in front of our faces very often. And of course, many times we leave it to our family members to actually tell us those kinds of things, and then we don't believe it anyway. So, as I said, it's about bare attention, discernment, clear seeing, and wisdom. And at the same time, it's also about an affectionate quality in the attention, an openness, a kindness, an attention that is actually caring. And that is actually a manifestation, I would say, of our heart's intrinsic compassion. Not something, again, that we have to get, something that we might realize that we already, I won't even say have, that we already are. When I talk about clear seeing, that makes it sound like it's limited to one sense. But seeing in this case represents all the senses, since it's only through our senses that we can be aware of and therefore know anything at all. But from the meditative perspective, especially in Buddhism, but also in science, there's a deep realization that there are actually more than 5 senses. And Buddhism includes mind as a 6th sense. And by mind, they don't mean thinking. They don't mean just the thinking mind. They mean the mind that is closer to awareness itself, that capacity of mind that knows non-conceptually, that knows where you are right now. You don't have to think about where you are right now. Most of the time, you just know where you are, and you know what's come before, and you know what's going to happen. You have a sense of orientation in time. You have a sense of orientation in space. We don't think about it at all, but there's an awful lot that we take for granted that we actually know in very deep ways. And so that's what's being pointed to here when we talk about mind as a 6th sense. So clear seeing can also mean clear hearing, clear smelling, clear tasting, clear touching, and clear knowing, which would include knowing what's on your mind, and therefore thinking, and knowing your emotional state, and therefore feeling what you're feeling, whether it be, say, fear or anger, or sadness, frustration, irritation, impatience, annoyance, whatever. In a parallel unfolding, as I was suggesting, neuroscience also recognizes that there are more than simply the 5 most recognized senses, and that we have other really remarkable senses that are absolutely critical to our lives and well-being, one of which is called proprioception. Proprio just means self. Okay, that means the apprehension or perception of oneself. It's actually the sense of knowing and feeling the body's position in space, both statically and in motion. And that sense, although it's very, very rare, can be lost with a certain kind of neurological damage. And then your body just doesn't work, even though it's all the same. And I wrote up a case that Oliver Sacks talks about in one of his books, where the woman in question actually lost proprioception. It's a staggering revelation to how little we pay attention to that kind of a sense in our lives and in our bodies. And there's another sense of this kind too, which is called interoception, the sense of knowing how your body's feeling in general, the sense of the felt sense, so to speak, of what is actually unfolding. Again, it's not about thinking. It's an internal, embodied feeling that the neuroscientist Antonio Damasio writes about in his books. So that being said, actually there's a lot to be aware of when it comes to our living experience, both outwardly in what you could call the world and inwardly in what you might call the interior world of our being. Since awareness, amazingly enough, can hold it all, both the inner landscapes and the outer landscapes of our experience, there's no fundamental separation between inner and outer, the knower and what's being known. You could say the subject and the object, or even no separation between being and doing. There only seems to be, and there really does seem to be, but that seeming is such a powerful aspect of our experience, especially when we're not paying attention to it in the present moment in a non-reactive, non-judgmental way through mindfulness, that it obscures the underlying unity, which is that there is mysteriously just the seeing, just the hearing, the smelling, the tasting, the touching, the feeling, the knowing, or you could say just awarenessing. Think about that for a moment. Just seeing, the miracle of that. Just hearing, and really hearing, and knowing that you're hearing. That is awareness. Or I like to actually coin the present participle of it, awarenessing. Not allowed to say that in English, so I like to say it, awarenessing. And maybe that'll give you a certain tonal or textural feeling for the spirit of mindfulness. It's no longer a noun, it's a verb. And it has a whole dynamics to it by being a verb that is very, very important to this whole domain of looking into who we are as human beings and being able to function in a very, very stressful and sometimes you could say even highly disordered, chaotic, diseased, and sometimes, frankly, insane world.